Welcome back, everybody, to the Cinebums. I'm so glad to be back doing my own episode. I've been having so much fun bringing my friends on to talk about the art of filmmaking, writing, and just gushing about movies because that's what you guys are here for. Today, I have someone really special, someone whose work that I really adore, whose ethic I really appreciate. Sarah Mies is here, but I usually just call her Smees. Thank you for Thank you so much for coming. I really
Yeah, of
appreciate it.
course. Yeah, we knew each other in school as my nickname Smeese because when your name is Sarah and you're in school, there's usually three or four others in your class, and I hate being Sarah number three or four, so Smeese usually.
Right. I didn't want to be presumptuous either, just to say Smees right off the bat, but
No,
you
I
seem
love
like you. Yeah.
it.
Quick question, like on all your scripts, do you do written by Smees or do you still stick with Sarah Mies?
That's actually a very interesting question. Let's see. La Cocina was by Sarah Mies because I had a partner that I was writing with, and so he had his name.
Uh
I will actually, mark my words here forth. Jake Mueller is the uh godfather of the birth of that on scripts from now
oh
on.
my God.
Because I like it. I like it a lot. I think it works and I think it's different. Just S. Mies.
Yeah, it's kind of like a pen name sort of deal. Like people will
Right.
know you by it's like a musical artist sort of stamp on your scripts. I think that'd be really great.
Yeah,
Uh,
because honestly, it's if I've told myself this, and maybe it would change if it actually came to fruition, but if I were to ever have a famous screenplay or anything like that, I wouldn't want it to be my actual name because I really value privacy. It's this weird trying to find the happy medium of, the recognition, but also privacy. So
sure.
maybe S Meese might be enough to keep it at least on the down low.
Yeah, and kind of piggybacking off of what we're talking about, like putting your name on something and like finishing a script, that feeling of like the accomplishment of that is like something I'll admittedly say I haven't felt in a really long time. And that was due to COVID-19 and being inside for fucking 1 year and a half almost. So that kind of leads me into what I wanted to talk most about is like inspiration. Like I was living with my parents. I moved back into my parents in the beginning of 2020 and finding inspiration was fucking hard, mostly because I wasn't around other people and I wasn't out in the world on a daily basis. I was like stuck. So like, did you have as much trouble as me during like the beginning of 2020 finding yourself back to the page with like a spark of an idea?
Well, I actually got really lucky because in 2019 fall, I was taking a television pilot writing class, and his name was Michael Niederman. And that's where my pilot La Cocina started. And it was just a mere project at that point, first draft, but I had my friend Ricardo read it
Mm-hmm.
to let me know what he thought before I turned it in as my final grade. And he just said, I want in. And I was like, great, cool. Don't know when that's going to happen, but I'm all about it. And then 2020, January to March, I was in LA doing the semester in Los Angeles program. And then I had to move back to Santa Fe because school went to online. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so once May came and we technically graduated, not much to do. And it was a dream really to take a kind of crappy situation and make the most out of it. So Ricardo and I ping ponged that script back and forth. So when COVID hit and it was time to stay inside, we had already had a pretty solid first draft to work on.
Oh, nice.
And then we sent it back and forth, and then we sent it to some festivals and, doing the thing. So yeah, got pretty lucky. And then
Yeah.
let's see. And then also during COVID, I taught a course. It kind of fell into my lap, but I taught the New Mexico School for the Arts high school. I taught a Zoom class for high schoolers, and it focused on screenwriting and storytelling, more so from the perspective of, the hero's journey by Joseph
Hmm.
Campbell, that
Right.
was, uh, praised so much in Gita's class, and I think for good reason, because it's a really great foundation, even though it's kind of hard to read.
Oh yeah, God.
So that was fun because I did a lot of practice with the kids and they were genuinely interested. Which, when they would do the exercise, I would do it with them as well, just to, in case they had trouble or what have you, I could show them my
Hmm.
example and then they could go from there. So teaching was really fun because it's almost a excuse to do more creative writing, which is, and more, everyone says you should write every day, and that's totally true. And I am really, really bad about writing every day.
I'm right there with you, honestly. Like it's gotten to the point where I stopped feeling bad and like beating myself up about the whole. I was trying to follow the philosophy that most people do, where it's like an hour a day or 10 pages a day, sort of framing of your writing schedule. But if you're not feeling it, you're not feeling it. Like I had to learn to accept that, and I don't know about you, but like I found journaling to be like an amazing alternative because I can journal every fucking day, like for 2 hours a day, because that's just me releasing my thoughts with no like real end goal. Like it doesn't have to be a structured script. It can be story ideas. It can be character ideas, stuff like that. So like, do you have like like a Moleskin journal or anything that you're like really proud of? Because I love journaling. Saved my life like through quarantine, especially.
Yeah, I journaled quite a bit as well. My journaling ranges from a phrase or a thought or a feeling, just a sentence
Mm-hmm.
or even a couple of words, and then it can go into 3 or 4 or 5 pages of like this
Exactly.
thing that I can't come to a certain conclusion about, the way I feel about something, or if someone pissed me off, like why did they do that, and why don't I understand why they did that, and was it because of this, or da, 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 as what's her name, Miss Sanders, that we had for dynamic
Francine
dialogue,
Sanders.
Francine Sanders, how she
Mm-hmm.
always praised subtext. So I feel like that's where I, through human relationships, trying to understand subtext and kind of talking to myself through journaling. um but yeah, I like to journal, and I do a lot of journaling in my phone, in my just like my notes
Oh
section.
yeah,
And
me
it
too.
will be very, just looking at it now just to get an idea, but it's very random. um I need to find a good one. I just had one the other day and I kind of, and yeah, like oh, yeah, yeah. Like this one's very small and short, but it's a good example of what I'm talking about. The association of a smell, taste, vision, color, or feeling to a person is a very special thing.
Oh, what
Yeah, 'cause,
spark? That's
like,
that's sweet.
yeah, like I was thinking about it one day because like this is so not as like adorable as what I just said was, but every time I eat limes, I think of tacos. I don't think of just limes on
Oh,
their own.
like
If
the
that makes,
garnish, yeah.
that's a very weird example, but if you smell something or you eat something and it reminds you of someone, I think that's to be associated with something so broad is pretty sweet. So that's kind of what you will find in my
Mm,
journal, which actually is really great if you're creating character and you're trying to understand them beyond a backstory, but really kind of who they are, just as a person. I
mm-hmm.
think that your journals can, whether what you write verbatim doesn't exactly match up with your character, maybe the reasoning for writing it down, or the content can show your character's priorities, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I do this. I did the same thing for so long where I was just kind of recording whatever thought that I thought was worth writing down in my phone. And, shout out to Francine because she taught us about the whole being kind of the fly on the wall and like eavesdropping. And for a while, I thought that might be like somewhat unethical of a thing, but like we're writers, like we're kind of observant people by nature. So it was kind of like I would be on the L train in Chicago and just kind of like force myself to take my headphones off, and like listen one car over and just see what people are talking about. Or like I worked at a bar throughout college with a lot of interesting cats would come in, and I was a bar back, so like I was literally always behind the bar, like behind the bartender listening in, and I would like sneak back behind the kitchen and write shit down that I heard. And like it may sound weird and somewhat obvious of a thing, but like working in the service industry throughout college and beyond, like it kept me writing because I was always around people that were loose and also just willing to share with you. So you worked at a bar, right? Or like you worked at the bar industry a lot. Like did that have the same effect on you?
Oh gosh, absolutely. It made me want to write a TV show about working in the service industry, and then thank God,
Mm-hmm.
The Bear. Have you watched that?
I love the bear so
It
much.
was so fun, and that was more from a kitchen, like cook's
Mm-hmm.
perspective. But
Mm-hmm.
so I worked in like the the polar opposites of the service industry. I worked in, the neighborhood bar. You get your shot and your beer, and
Mm-hmm.
there's live music, and they've got bar food. And then I worked in one of the most prestigious fine dining restaurants in Santa Fe. And that was really interesting because it was right after COVID. So it was this population of people that weren't hit very hard by COVID because they are in a privileged position where
Gotcha.
they have enough space to
Mm-hmm.
live and, monetary security, what have you. And so, oh man, I'll never forget. And you're so right in terms of eavesdropping, and I love Francine for that because I love that
Mm-hmm.
assignment because
For
people are
sure.
so interesting, especially when they're not knowing they're being heard. And sometimes I catch myself when I talk, I'm like, oh my God, if someone heard that, they'd think I'm such a bitch or something.
Exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
but specifically, we were serving this table and they totally finagled their way in. They did not have a reservation. They said, "Well, we talked to
Mm.
the, host, and
Mm-hmm.
they said we didn't need it, whatever." And so it was 10 of them, 5 minutes before we closed, and we served them a full three-course dinner. And they were just the one percenters. They were awful. They were horrible. And I remember I was filling wine and I was removing plates and what have you, and they were talking about racing their helicopters.
Holy
I
fuck.
remember I just went back into the kitchen. I'm scraping food off of plates into a trash can, and I'm just standing there like, holy shit. Like, God. And then, oh, there's safari vacations where they stayed in Africa for a month.
Oh
And
boy.
God, just the way that people talk, from so many different walks of life. It was,
Mm.
God, it was so interesting. It was so interesting. There's
Yeah.
so much psychology behind just specifically dialogue and listening to people.
Mm-hmm.
And the conversation you hear in a good restaurant is not the conversation you hear on a subway. It's all
Totally.
it's all about your location and setting. It's very interesting, but eavesdropping in Francine's class was really fun.
A blast. Absolutely a blast. I have a quick story about when I was at that bar.
Mhm.
Not quite as egregious as what you just said about these one percenters. Um, but so I was the youngest guy at this that worked at this bar by far. So the owner would often ask me to act as like the bouncer as well to kind of escort people out. So you can imagine there's a lot of stories stemming from that of because people would often open up to me while I waited for them with them on the curb to get an Uber or whatever. And there's one guy I'll never forget because he came in for probably 6 months straight, like Monday through Sunday or Monday through Saturday, excuse me. And it got to the point where they were like trying to set up rehab for him. He was like really good friends with all the staff, and he broke down one day, and of course like I had to help carry him out and like wait with him while an Uber picked him up, and I think he was going straight to rehab, and he broke down crying in front of me, but it was a cry of relief because he told me, he's like, no one's cared about me this much, and like, tell the owner thank you and I love him for it. And that was the last time I ever saw him, and it was like one of the most unexpectedly like profound moments. And like working at a bar, like that was, I always shit on like exactly what you were talking about with serving the people that think they own the world, but then you see someone so vulnerable like that. It was just such a beautiful moment. I don't know if that really has anything to do with the writing part, but like, you know,
Well, inspiration is everywhere, and especially where
totally,
you
totally.
work, especially where you work because you go to somewhere every single day, basically in the same place, and that's building a status quo. You feel me?
Yeah,
So you understand what's outrageous, you understand what's a normal day, you understand like the heartbeat of your location. So it's very interesting. But also, I love writing short films because, with the attention span of our time, that's kind of where we're going more towards. And they've always been such a much lower commitment in terms of writing, but you can still
sure.
convey quite a bit of emotion even in such a short amount of time.
Hmm.
We learned a lot about short scripts in Gita's class. And it all went back to three act structure, and it doesn't matter how big or how small a story is. You need a beginning, middle, and end, and a couple things in between.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's that's a really cool thing. I hope you wrote that down.
That inspired an entire. I was in Danny Kravitz's class at the time, and that inspired an entire sort of short film that I had,
Nice.
short idea. So yeah, it totally sparked something pretty strong. And like I think about that moment like every time I walk into a bar, I remember that moment for some reason. It's stuck there.
Yeah, it's
Um,
amazing.
yeah, and yeah, what you said about the attention span thing rings so true because I haven't been doing a lot of features of late, and I've been kind of shifting to. You said shorts. I've been doing shorts too, but I kind of got into TV pilots because it's kind of what you were talking about, where you kind of, for one, you can have a blank slate. It's a foundation to a story. There isn't necessarily a beginning, middle, end, but if you have an idea for a world and a character you want to explore, that's kind of what I've been doing. And I couldn't tell you how many like ones that I've started like 20, 30 pages and abandoned, but at least I got the idea out there without having to do like a feature. You know what I mean? It's like
Right.
you're stuck
I
to 30 pages.
I am like, I think just talking to you now, I just realized I'm a newfound term called a script monogamist. I have, I am like so emotionally invested in scripts that if I know in my heart I'm not going to finish, I won't start
Hmm.
it, that's messed up because I think it's kept me from some cool things happening. I have a really hard time, and which is why I don't really read a lot of fiction in terms of books. I have a
Hmm.
really hard time going in and out of a world. I have to be super, super invested. And it's kind of like VR, like virtual reality. You put on these glasses, you get into this whole zone and I
Hmm.
have a really hard time cutting in out of it fast. So I read a lot of memoirs. I read a lot of nonfiction. I love documentaries, although
Hmm.
it's not my field of interest in terms of writing or
Sure.
creating, I guess. Um, but yeah, it's I need to so I have you read The Mean Southwest. I don't remember if we were partners on that.
No, you just sent me that for notes. I do. Yeah, how's that going?
Um, so the first, it's one of those weird things. The Catalyst, which stands on its own as its own short film, the first 15 pages, I feel like
Right.
are killer. I feel like they're killer, and I really, really love them. But then it's like you've seen that meme where it's the horse drawn and it's like the face is amazing and then you get to like the body
Yes.
and the
Yeah.
legs and it looks like a stick figure.
Yeah.
That's what
I
I'm
love
dealing
that.
with right now. So it's like I've written up to 60, 70 pages
Hmm.
following that first act, but it's just the stick figure and it is not good. But I spent quite a bit of time on the first 15 pages, which is why it's so solid. But I'm really trying to get into writing the rest of that because it's technically going to be a feature, but I
Yeah.
don't know where to go next. And it's frustrating because I know if I was doing more creative writing, then I would feel more comfortable and more inclined to continue forward with it.
Hmm.
So,
No, I totally agree. And would you mind like doing the elevator pitch to that movie? Just
yeah,
so people know, because the plot's so fucking cool. I remember, just so
yeah.
everyone knows the what you're talking
So
about.
the Mean Southwest is about, it takes place in the 1800s, like late, Wild West era, about a girl that was born into a brothel because her aunt owns it. And she turns a certain age. The script takes place, the short film takes place in one day. And
Hmm.
she basically becomes the age of where she needs to stop cleaning glasses and lingerie, and she needs to start pulling her weight in terms of becoming a prostitute. And so she's supposed to hook up or service the sheriff's son at this brothel, and she really doesn't want to, and she ends up accidentally killing him. And
Hmm.
then she steals his clothes and escapes and takes on this persona of a cowboy. And so, where I see in a larger general description, I see this going into, a girl pretending to be a cowboy, like a phoenix from the ashes becomes a cowgirl, not
Hmm.
so much a woman pretending to be a man, but through her journey basically comes out to be like a diehard cowgirl, which was, the idea is that that wasn't a thing at the time. So I'm
Right.
not sure where the hell she goes after she kills this guy. And I like the idea that she she stumbles upon a different town and she's been traveling for days or weeks or what have you, and then she goes somewhere and she keeps seeing pictures of herself everywhere, wanted, wanted, wanted.
Wanted signs.
And then she basically has to figure out, okay, I need to just cut my hair. I need to cut my hair. I need to do the bandana thing. I need to be on the low low. So that's kind of where
Hmm.
I'm at. And I'm trying to work on some fun exercises that will get I feel like the creative, imaginative part of my brain has been so weighed down by the amount of nonfiction I've been reading.
Ah.
Very strange, but I find
Uh-huh.
myself struggling because it's a muscle, man. Like if you're not practicing writing every day, it feel like I sit down sometimes and I cannot for the life of me think of a prompt just for a 5-minute writing. Like can't think of anything.
Hmm.
So that's scary. So I need to work on writing every day and doing specifically creative writing every day.
Yeah, and that goes beyond just because I try to journal every day, but that sometimes turns into like a self-indulgent exercise and not so much, reigniting that part of your brain that you're talking about for sure. And it's really hard because we got shit to do. Like there's a lot in life you have to put before that, which sucks. And
Right.
that was the best part by far for me about going to film school because it was like, oh, I could carve out at least 2 to 3 hours a day to sort of figure out what my voice is, especially. And that I always look back fondly on that.
I
Going back,
100% agree. I would go
yeah,
back to film school in a heartbeat just for the structure of it.
totally. Like I've fantasized about going to like grad school somewhere just so I can get back into that
Same.
zone. And yeah,
Absolutely.
if student debt wasn't a thing, I would be like right on that, you know.
Right. And what's pretty interesting is that I live in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and
Mm.
they just passed something this year that is they education is free here now. So
Oh,
it
nice. That's great.
but that doesn't mean that there is a means or a good program for screenwriting. So just
Right. Oh, I see.
it's more so like there is film based education, but not we're not known for the prestigious screenwriting
Hmm.
MFA or bachelor or masters, like you would see at University of Austin.
Mm.
Um,
AFI and
yeah,
NYU, all the
yeah,
big guys. Yeah.
exactly. Like Ithaca College was one of my top ones where
Mm.
Rod Stewart went and
Oh,
did
no way.
Twilight Zone. Yeah. But it was really expensive, so I ended up not going. But that would one day. We just need to create a and my friends and I did this for a while, but it kind of just like dwindled as life happened. We used to do prompts every day in a group chat with a bunch of friends.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
whether we did it or not, at least it was kind of something that at least made us mentally aware.
sure. And I don't know how accountable like you guys
Yeah.
were to doing that every day, but like for me, like whenever I've had I've done so many shorts with writing partners, and like you with La Cocina, like a writing partner for just something you want to submit to festivals, like you're accountable to ping pong it back and forth and get it done because like
Mhm.
someone else is putting in equal amount of work. And you know I don't know if that speaks for how lazy I could get, but it's like if I don't have that, I'm just like, I'd rather just do something else on certain
Mhm.
days, and I was never like that before. I just like, I don't know. As I get older, it's like I got to be more accountable. And like, do you feel the same way? Do you want to like set
Oh,
yourself to a certain standard, at this point in your life for writing?
yeah, 100%. And I think the best thing that you can do as a writer is just surround yourself with writers as well. And
Hmm.
my good friends, Matt, Oscar, and Kakoa, we, for a really good year, just were always writing, always creating projects together. And it was so much fun. It's just, Oscar and Kakoa have kids, and Matt moved
Mm.
back to Chicago, and I got a new job, and it all life happens, and that's understandable. So it just depends on the amount of accountability that you want. Because those guys are I just had a call with Oscar this morning because they're some of my good like creative business buddies. But we definitely like hold each other accountable, even if it isn't with writing based, it's with work in general, and the work paths that put the food on the table that we hold each other accountable for. So
Yeah, that's great to hear. Yeah, I mean, I just literally last weekend I just wrapped a short that I helped direct, and I'm editing it for some friends of mine. And then like I've been doing the festival rounds with a pilot that I'm doing. Like I've been submitting it, and it's kind of back, like that feeling that's hard to kind of define, but like the feeling that I need to keep going, I guess. It's like a beacon of hope, I'm creating and I got to keep creating. And
right, it's like, oh my God, someone gave a shit about that thing I made. Like
yeah, yeah.
it has to mean something.
No, totally. I was gonna ask you, remind me. Oh yeah, okay, I remember. The Holy Word
Yeah.
was the short that you submitted to festivals, and you found a
Yeah.
director, and it got produced. I
Yeah.
just out of curiosity, I was like, what's the status on that? Because I would love to watch it when it's like making its
Yeah,
rounds.
absolutely. So it is showing at the Santa Fe International Film Festival. It used to be the Santa Fe Independent Film Festival, but they've changed it to International this year. So it's playing at that, and I'm excited because it's a big deal for Santa Fe. So I get to
Mhm.
actually go to a theater and go get to see it.
That's so cool.
So we're really excited about that. It got a couple other recognitions like a film festival in Albuquerque and one in Kansas City and one in Tucumcari, which is a really small town in New Mexico. And
Hmm.
then London Comedy Film Festival, it got an honorable mention. So it's it was just such a fun project from start to finish, and definitely one that I never thought would be produced just because it was a mere story in my laptop that like probably was never going to go anywhere. But a friend of mine sent me a contest invitation, and so I just said sure, and it's here now, and it's pretty crazy. But in terms of a portfolio, it's coming together pretty nicely between the Mean Southwest, La Cocina, and the Holy Word. But I'll definitely send you the Holy Word. It's finished.
Please do.
Yeah, my goal was to get 100% of women on and behind the camera, and we got pretty
That's
darn
great.
close. And it was about 95% behind camera and like 97% on camera. And that was such a cool experience. And, it's hard to base it off of like college sets because that's its own
Right.
monster, Pandora's
Hmm.
box. But it was really fun because we got to work with, it takes place in so basically the Holy Word is about a girl that goes to Catholic school and she is the black sheep and scolded by her theology teacher for reading books that aren't the Bible. And so instead of going to church every month, this is a story about me, she would go into the bathroom and read like dirty books, like 50 Shades of Grey. It was called something else in the short film. It was like, oh yeah, and it was just so funny because it was like the main girl, she actually wore my shoes from high school.
Oh, and wow.
Fit her
That's
perfectly.
crazy. That's
Crazy.
nuts.
But oh my gosh, she was perfect. And my mom donated the costumes and they
Nice.
we put patches on them. They looked like, Sunday school clothes and it was perfect. And she got to like make out with this super hot model because we had a dream sequence. And she's like a high schooler. So we had this dream sequence of her, thinking of herself as the main character of this book.
Right.
And
Right.
so it was called shit. I cannot remember what the name of the book was in the movie, but it was basically about a girl and a librarian having an affair. And
Hmm.
her teacher wakes, like she snaps out of it and her teacher's like, what are you reading? And then whatever. But it was such a fun, cute short film, and I feel like compared to most mediums of screenwriting, short films are my wheelhouse. They're just my attention span can handle it, and they're fun, and it's just daunting to think of going through a feature editing. It's just daunting to
Oh,
me.
goddamn. Like, tell me about it. That,
Oh,
yeah, I always think about that script that you wrote. And well, congrats, first of all. That's so
thank
cool that
you.
they're playing it throughout New Mexico. And I love
Appreciate
that
it.
you kept it like really locally. Like, that's really cool.
Yeah.
But I remember I think you might have just texted me the synopsis about that. And at the time I was doing my thesis for Columbia.
Hmm.
And mine was all about a young girl in private school, and which kind of stemmed from my experiences because I think we both went to Catholic school. I think that's pretty
Yeah.
clear. And yeah, and I just thought it was so cool because like you and I had another friend doing like Screen Two at the time, and like we were all doing these kind of sort of satirical, semi like surrealist looks at our time in Catholic school because we all look back at it kind of in a similar way, I would say. And I just
Hmm.
thought it was so cool, like all these people that I know doing this kind of not the same story, but like similar themes and this the same setting. So, and that was a script, by the way, that kind of fell off hard in the third act because I just like you were saying with the Southwest one, like I just couldn't think of where it could go. But I had a good foundation, but then it just like man, but that's besides the point. But I love the fact that that got recognition being such a personal story of yours.
Thanks. Yeah, and I had that script written like, let's see, 2000. Oh gosh, it was written and I sat on it forever, like high school. So like
Oh no
2000,
way.
2016, 2017. And then I went back and was like, well, what do I submit? And I saw it and I was like, I'm just going to submit this and go for it. And it was written. I would like the court to know it was written before Lady Bird, and Lady Bird came out. It was
There you
like,
go.
oh my God. Lady
Fuck my
Bird
life.
is through and through 100% my freaking life. It's like mom and daughter that's so not into Catholic school. Mom and daughter do not get along, and she wants to escape and go to art school far away. It is. My mom and I watched it, and we just were like, wow.
She got it right. Greta
Right. No,
Gerwig got it right. Yeah.
oh, Greta Gerwig got it super, super right.
You
What a
know,
fun movie too.
that's an incredible movie. I took I saw that movie like three times in when it came out, like when I was in Chicago, and then I went back to take my sister to see it, and she was like bawling because I'm like, just a heads up, this movie is like a direct reflection of what you and mom's relationship is.
Right.
And I was like, it's a relationship you never see on film, like portrayed so elegantly, in my opinion.
Right.
And beyond like the whole, the kind of angsty side of Lady Bird, it's like that love story with her mom for
Hmm.
me was like it was so just poignant and great. But yeah, and
Hmm.
I felt the same way when I saw that movie. I'm like, I wanted to make some version of this movie, like this kind of coming of age approach. Just God, it's a great movie though. Like I'm glad it exists.
Right.
You know,
Exactly. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, what a blast. What a blast overall.
absolutely. Yeah, I could watch it anytime. And I know before you said like you're not. You haven't been watching a ton of fiction or reading a bunch of fiction, but I don't know, is anything in like the last year that's really sparked your creativity that you like maybe it's a movie that came out or like a show from the past year?
Yeah, I have this like syndrome of watching the same thing over and over. Specifically like I don't know if I would call it depression show, but like I like I like watching things that I know it's going to happen, especially if it makes me laugh. So like my retainer is Bob's Burgers, Family Guy,
Yes.
American Dad. The adult comedy animation genre is my bread and butter. That's like my favorite thing to watch. But so 2020, when I was in LA, my writing partner for La Cocina was in LA. So we
Hmm.
got to meet up a couple times and have writing sessions and hung out just in general. And one movie that he really wanted me to watch is called Blood In, Blood Out. Have you ever heard of it?
No.
Oh my God, dude. Okay. If you have never seen Blood In, Blood Out, came out in 1993. Let me double check that, but I'm pretty sure that movie is absolutely amazing. It's like, God, it's like 1993, 3 hours long. It is so long, but it's about three brothers in the hood in LA. And it's basically their life and relationship, caught up in a gang and how
Hmm.
they have dreams and hopes, but kind of uh, being in this life can get in the way of that. It's my top 10
Oh
100%.
wow.
Incredible movie. And then there's another film that one inspired La Cocina a lot. And then there's another film that actually came out in the same year, which is pretty interesting. And it's called Mi Vida Loca. And it's the perspective of same area, same-ish area, Los Angeles, like Echo Park specifically, of
Okay.
women joining gangs and the life of these girls being friends and getting into it together. So those two movies were my biggest inspirations for La Cocina. And I don't know if I've mentioned the kind of plot or log line of La Cocina, but
Yeah, go
basically,
for it. Yeah.
yeah, basically it follows a girl, lesbian, Chicana chick in Long Beach area, San Bernardino, another part of Los Angeles, California area. And she's going into her first day of high school and with her best friend Elena, and they basically get caught up joining a gang together. And it's interesting because I see the finale. Like I see it 8 seasons down, which I've never felt that confident about in my
Wow.
life. But
Holy
I
shit.
see I see the arc story wise and character wise, and I see her basically, making a stupid decision because you're young and you want safety in an unsafe place at that age, especially
Hmm.
for a girl in high school. Especially when you like can be the butt of so many jokes from so many people, because she's described as bigger, gay, just a bunch of things that kids can get tortured for in high school. And
Sure.
so that decision will basically bring her 10 years later to decide like, oh my gosh, I don't want this anymore. I really just I she loves cooking, so she wants to leave and become a chef, but it's one thing to join a gang, but it's another to leave, which is one of the most impossible things that you can do. And
Yeah.
so a friend of mine actually inspired this story because it's loosely inspired from her life and her upbringing.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so it's it's something I haven't seen before. You don't see the female perspective in gang life. And so this year I've been really into The Sopranos. I've never watched it before. I'm super behind on it. So I'm on season 2 or 3 right now.
It's getting good.
Oh my God, it's so good. And
It's my favorite show ever. I'll just say
I can't believe I've
it's my
taken this
favorite.
long to watch it, but I watch it and I'm like, oh, this is solidified how I feel about women in gangs. I'm not trying to glamorize it, but I
Oh
am
yeah, of
trying
course not.
to bring to light that there is an unseen or underrepresented
Yeah,
world. And that's what something Gita said that always stuck with me is introduce us to a world that nobody's seen before. And so
totally.
that's how I feel with La Casina. And it's just been a very, very cool project because Ricardo is so, Ricardo, when we're writing our personal statements and what have you to festivals, Ricardo is really, really sick of this idea of you read the script or they're called gang member number 3, but it's not like you don't know the people. They're just gang member number 3, gang member number 4. But I think the richness comes from their nicknames. Like that's a big part of it too. Gang members have nicknames, and
Mm,
there's such fun stories behind that. And that's how I introduce a lot of the characters in La Cocina. Is they all get their moment because they all have nicknames and they've all earned it in some respect, and you could see how and why, and that's a fun dive into their characters. So um,
totally.
it's an incredibly character based show. Um, it's somewhere between I like I've never seen it, but I like the concept and understanding of Sons of Anarchy.
Hmm.
Um, and how it's family based.
A
Really,
tribe of people, sort of like
yeah,
really niche tribe
exactly.
of people.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And it's just this project has just been so fun. And obviously Breaking Bad, it's kind of like hard to not mention Breaking Bad because
We have
living
to.
in
Yeah.
living in New Mexico and
That's right. Yeah.
yeah, and just
Albuquerque.
screenwriting in general, this is oh gosh, what is it? Oh gosh. Oh my gosh, I totally forgot this was a thing. So okay, it's on YouTube. I watch it all the time. It's something about screenwriting, and I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but it walks through videos. I'm gonna plug this because it's great once I
Please
figure out what
do.
it's
Yeah.
called.
I can link it in our description of the podcast too.
Yeah, oh, that would be awesome. Um, I'm looking at the people I follow on here, and I just want to make sure because I love it. Oh, it's so fun. Lessons from the screenplay.
Oh yeah.
That's
I,
my
I
plug.
I watch their videos a lot. Yeah, I co-sign that. They're great.
Oh gosh.
So
Oh
good.
man. Oh, this is super off topic, but it was just a movie I have my watch list for IMDb is from the last 5 years of people suggesting movies and TVs to me. I put it on my list and I am officially going through it. So I have like 109 and I'll look through and I'll say, okay, I'll make myself pick a number between 1 and 109 and I'll say, okay, 78. And so I'll watch it, whatever it is. I won't be picky, I'll just watch it. I just watched Portrait of a Lady on Fire.
Ah, I love that movie.
What a sweet, gorgeous. It's one of those like call me by your name, I fuck fest, like where it's
Oh
just
yeah.
so quiet and so lovely. It's so pleasing to the eye and it's so
Every frame is a painting of that movie.
uh
It is
also a very good
absolutely
YouTube
gorgeous.
channel. Every frame a painting.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I didn't mean to plug them, but yeah, that's totally true.
But
Um, that's an
yeah,
incredible movie. Do you know the director of that movie? Celine Sciamma is her name. She's a French filmmaker.
I don't.
I have a recommendation for you from her.
Okay.
So she did this movie. It is called Petite Maman, which I do not know what it's translated for, but it is the sweetest coming of age movie. It's 78 minutes.
Okay.
It is like a Japanese anime, but told from like a French perspective. Do you like Hayao Miyazaki, like My Neighbor Totoro,
Yeah, of
that sort of
course.
stuff? Like
Absolutely.
she was kind of for me, I felt like she was paying homage to like this childlike wonderment. It's basically about a little girl who's like leaving her childhood home and she finds like an imaginary friend in the woods, and it's really about like her finding agency in the world while her parents are like splitting up. But it is such a sweet movie, and if you like Portrait of a Lady on Fire, dude, it made me cry so much, like just as much as
Oh.
Portrait. Um,
I think that that's almost like one of the hardest but coolest abilities with screenwriting and like Pixar is very well known for it. Hayao Miyazaki is as well. It's very adult themes
mhm.
being told through children's stories. Um it's very interesting.
You're speaking my language. That's what turns me on in terms of writing.
Mhm.
Um, Not necessarily Pixar even, but like I said with like Japanese animation, like that that's something I kind of found when I was older, like even like hitting college age, because those movies are like sprawling and so like fantastical and like oftentimes like really otherworldly, like not necessarily realistic per se, but at the heart of it, like what you're saying, like they're really relatable personal stories, and you could tell the whoever's writing them is like it's straight from the heart, the good ones. And that does go for Pixar too. Like I don't know if you watched Turning Red this year, but that
Oh, it's
movie
so cute.
was so fucking adorable. And again, I was like, I called my sister. I'm like, dude, this is mom. This is your and mom's relationship when you were 13.
Right.
And I saw myself in that movie too. And I'm like, it's so
Mhm.
cool when you can reach and seeing an Asian, because I'm Asian, and seeing like an Asian family portrayed in that light in a fucking Pixar movie was really cool. So yeah, that stuff always just gets to me, and I think it's just so beautiful when people could tell their stories for kids and families like that. You know?
Hmm. Definitely. And it's always like you don't want to try too hard to like bring out those symbols and to bring out those themes because it feels like to be that clever feels like it almost has to be natural. There's like an algorithm to certain themes coming out of action and characters and story, but it's the ones that just seem so
Yeah.
effortless. And then you're like, oh my God, fuck you for making me cry. You did it. And I didn't even realize you were doing it.
No, yeah, the last thing you want it to feel is formulaic. Like you don't want to see the 1 + 1 = 2 when you're
Right,
experiencing the movie itself. And that's again, as a writer, like I try to avoid that. I try to avoid emotional manipulation
right,
or even like story manipulation, like putting something in just because it has to be there. And
right.
that was another question I had. It's more of a tangent from what we're talking about, but like, do you ever feel yourself trapped? Like, well, this like say Ladybird, like Ladybird had this sequence that defined Ladybird this way, like, and subconsciously you write a scene just like that. Like, does that ever happen to you?
Um, there's moments in film and television that I'm like, God, that was so clever. I want to do that. And so I try to extract the core of it rather than the execution and then figure out a way that I can do that thing. So like for example, La Cocina, I watched the lessons from the screenplay episode about the pilot of Breaking Bad.
Mm-hmm.
I
Good one.
really loved how they did the teaser. I think it's killer. You open up and a man's in his underwear pointing a
Oh
gun.
yeah,
I fucking
genius.
love that. And I was like, I want to do a teaser. I want to do something fun like that, where you think you have it figured out, but then you watch the episode and you
Mm-hmm.
totally fucking don't. So, La Cocina, and I'll just share this because I just love that the way that it came about. You open up on these girls and they are beating to a pulp the main character. And then it just cuts to 3 months earlier and it's her first day of school, and then
Wow.
you're going about it and you're like, wow, how did she get so vulnerable, and how are they gonna, da, da, da. And then you get to the end and you're like, holy shit, she asked for this to happen because she's going through an initiation of joining a gang. So
Wow.
you think she's getting beat up, like, you know um not by her own way or what have you, not by her own choice. But then you get to the end of the episode and it's actually her getting initiated into a gang. And I loved how freaking clever it was because when we were talking about it, we kind of didn't know where to go with it. And I said, what would be the opposite of what's expected just from this teaser? What's the
Right.
complete opposite? Is that somebody getting beat up obviously doesn't want to get beat up. And that's something I learned in school too, is if you're ever stuck, think of what's the opposite thing that can be happening. That's a really awesome way to come up with situations that you would never expect to happen and always keep
Right.
viewers on their toes.
That's a great tool. I don't know where I learned that, but I've done that with a lot of different, mostly with the, like you were talking about those like 5 minute or like 5 step writing exercise you do.
Right.
Um, that's where I was using those, and that would not necessarily they would work for the story, but it would at least, teach my brain to think in different ways, if that makes sense. Like I would access parts that felt maybe uncomfortable or like somewhat out of left field, but it could be exciting for your story, you know?
Right.
Um, and what you're talking about with Breaking Bad, that's another tool I love to use is the teaser. I like to say call it like a framing device because it kind of sets the stage for kind of everything comes back to that one moment in Breaking Bad, especially the
Mhm.
pilot. Like it's always at the back of your mind whenever I've watched that pilot like 3 or 4 times in my life because it's such a clinic in
Mhm.
writing. And same with the Sopranos episode because like that the pilot especially like subverts a lot of expectations. Um, just seeing Tony Soprano in like a therapy office like is a subversion and a really interesting like setting to put a mobster. And it sounds like that's what you're doing with La Cocina too, is like everything feels out of left field is what you were saying, sort of, right? Like everything kind of felt we've never seen this on screen, you know? Um,
Right. And I'm so envious of concepts that just make so much sense and seem so effortless, but I know that it
I know.
wasn't. Like having a Italian mobster go to therapy, like
Yeah.
that's it's so simply said, but it's so genius because you have the main character who's the boss, you have him in a place, and Gita always taught this as well. It's your character is either, and this is her opinion, so maybe if you don't agree, that's fine. But your
Mm-hmm.
character is usually in a place of either power or deficiency. And how are they going to act within that? And so for Tony Soprano, this room is very dynamic because it's often a place of deficiency because he gets really frustrated
Mm-hmm.
and storms out a bunch, but also he has a lot of power in it because he gets to talk about things that he can't talk about with anybody else, which is why he has
Right.
a budding relationship with his therapist. And it's just, God, it's just so brilliant. It's so brilliant. And
Absolutely.
it's just with him, who wrote it? I forgot.
David Chase
And
is
like,
he's the showrunner.
right. And then you have Vince Gilligan with Breaking Bad. And I just want to get in their heads and I just want to, and I know there's probably YouTube videos or what have you, but like, oh man, it's just simple concepts that are just so dynamic. Like a chemistry teacher, makes money for his cancer by making meth in the meth
Yeah.
capital of the country.
Perfect pitch.
Fucking killer.
Fucking perfect. Yeah.
That's awesome. I love shows it's just, oh, God, geniuses.
I share the jealousy with you,
Right.
honestly.
It's just, oh my God, what a blast. Oh my gosh. And just that stuff blows my mind with the amount of character relationships and the amount of relationships you have to keep track of. That is just God, so many freaking characters, man. Like,
Yeah. Well, that's why they
oh,
have a writer's room to help keep their scatterbrain mess like on
right.
track, I feel like.
Just have a giant family tree web basically to keep everything
Mhm.
together.
Sopranos, especially, I'm in awe of because I know you're at season 3, and that's when they really start to go really deep with the sort of A, B, and C characters, right?
Right.
So, and that's when you're like, okay, this has become genuine about these and Chris' girlfriend and all these like side characters that are like archetype, but they become full-fledged human beings, and that's part of why that show is just so brilliant. Is like we care so I care so much about every single character. Like there's so much care given
Right.
to all of them. I remember. I don't know if you're familiar. There's a screenwriter named Terrence Winter. He actually wrote on Sopranos, but he created Boardwalk Empire and he wrote Wolf of Wall Street.
Oh, nice.
And I followed his philosophy really closely, where he talked about how he moved to LA, like he quit being like a lawyer or some shit, like a
Oh,
really high
wow.
paying job. He basically moved to LA and worked on all these like really formulaic like cop shows and like true crime stuff. And there he kind of learned like what not to do to write great television and to avoid the tropes that like normal TV viewers are comfortable with. And
Right.
that's how he got jobs on like The Sopranos and created Boardwalk Empire, which is an amazing show too. He like wrote The Wolf of Wall Street. Like he's had this really thriving career.
Hmm.
Um, I look to people like that, that are just have really great philosophies on just the arts of television writing or just screenwriting in general. Um, so yeah, and he has an interview on YouTube. I highly recommend it. It's like an hour long, but he goes through so many like great writing techniques that I still think about. So
Nice. I will definitely.
that is my plug.
Nice. Yeah, I'll definitely check it out. And it's really interesting because, three different writers can write the same show, but it all depends on their background and their research material and what have you. And they're all going to be different because it's all about perspective. So, some people just were born to write a certain show, and that's kind of how I feel about what you just mentioned. And then, like Shonda Rhimes has a really great what is it, masterclass. I used masterclass. It's kind of cheating, but I used it a lot when I was teaching because I didn't want my kids to think that I knew everything because I don't. And I don't know a better way to teach screenwriting than from seasoned professional famous screenwriters. So
Right.
we watched Aaron Sorkin's, which was really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And God, I would rather die than get inside his brain because I can't even imagine the amount of what the heck is going on during that. Like, it was the first time I watched Social Network, I was like, why do I feel stupid? I don't like how stupid I feel right now. And then I watched it again. I was like, okay, starting to get it a little bit better. Like, it was just one of those it just so much was happening at once.
Oh yeah. It's information upon information layered on each other, plot lines layered on each other.
Right.
And it's Sorkin. That's funny you bring that up because I watched his masterclass too, and it is like his is so he has the most probably specific writing style I think of any screenwriter in Hollywood, and
Hmm.
it's because he has so many ideas just flowing through him all at once, like especially dialogue because his movies are so fucking wordy. But again, like something like The Social Network and like the Steve Jobs movie, and I don't know if you watched his show, like the newsroom and stuff. Like he kind of taught me a lot about monologuing and like what's necessary in a monologue and what's not, because like that's when you can become the most indulgent as a writer.
Right.
But I don't know if it was the master class, but he mentioned something about keeping it focused and there I couldn't tell you what the rationale was, but he had this like really crazy method of constructing a monologue and I was trying to follow it and it was like only he could do it. Like
Right.
I couldn't see that translating to someone like us who are, you know, but still I appreciate that he has a master class and get inside his head and his insane brain. So
I was gonna say too, because you said newsroom, and I don't know how this connects, but that
mm,
just made me think of do you remember a movie called Spotlight
yeah,
from I have IMDb, so I'm taking
2015.
yeah.
Yeah,
Mark Ruffalo, Michael Keaton, Rachel McAdams,
totally. Yeah.
that one, that year's best screenplay for the Oscars, and I actually bought it at a bookstore one time, but I loved that screenplay.
Oh, it's amazing.
I haven't seen that movie in a long time, but that as well as The Sopranos, as well as countless other movies, those were movies where I didn't feel like I was watching actors that rehearse lines. It really, really felt like you were watching this go down, especially Mark Ruffalo's character
Oh
was
yeah.
really killer in that because it was weird. He had this weird little like I don't even know, like Boston, like his lip staying one place kind of thing. It was really good. Um, I just had to mention that that was a really good screenplay.
Yeah, yeah. And this scene especially when he kind of unveils his true intentions with him,
Mhm.
he kind of has his outburst. Like that's a really great example of what I was talking about with the Sorkin thing.
Yeah,
Like kind of a
absolutely.
perfectly constructed monologue,
Truly.
even though he's like stating the theme of the movie like to us. But
Right.
that movie,
You
you're
know,
right. Yeah, it feels so natural, even though it's like a procedural movie.
right. Um, I'll have to share with you later, but I had an idea about a short film about a bartender that when I was bartending, I had borderline like disassociative um moments where like things were so
Mm,
stressful that I just would just stare into the abyss blankly
mm.
until finally I was like, okay, I need to get out of the service industry. This is but I had a short film idea that I'll share with you later, but we
Cool.
should collaborate on that.
Totally.
I wanted to ask if you don't mind me stealing the line of questioning for a second.
Please do. Please
What
do.
whatever came of, and it's okay if the answer is nothing. Whatever came of Clea?
Nothing. Um,
No
no,
stress
no,
at
no.
all.
So that was one where that's a good question. I haven't thought about Clea in so long, and I loved your section for it. Yeah, for people that don't know, we collaborated on like a kind of an anthology script, and so okay, so Brendan was supposed to write the first act, and we just couldn't figure it out, and
Mhm.
it's just one of those things where we just moved on to other shit
Right.
in our lives creatively.
Mhm.
Um, but I would love to talk to you about that more if you had an idea on how to. I've never. It's fucking weird. I never had a problem where I couldn't begin a story, like because we did it anthology fashion. Like I wrote the end, you wrote the middle, and we need a beginning.
Right.
Um, um, no, I would love to. I would love to finish that just because I love what we were doing leading up to that. But yeah, sadly nothing came of
Yeah,
it.
no stress. I was just curious.
Mhm.
We had mentioned earlier talking about pulling things from our lives and putting them into stories, and it reminded me of Stephen King. He has a memoir called Stephen King on Writing, and I think I'm gonna butcher this because I haven't read that book in a while, but I think it was him. He was running. He was a big runner and then a big walker. He ran every day before or after writing. I think it was before in
Yeah,
the morning.
yeah, I've heard
But
that too.
didn't he like a tree fall on him and he broke his leg or he actually got hit by a car or something?
Yeah, I thought he was. Yeah, he got in some bad accident that
He
inspired
broke his
Misery.
leg.
Is that what you're? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then that's how Misery came about,
Mm-hmm.
and which is a great book. I've actually not seen the
Great
movie,
book. Great book.
blasphemous. But
It's a
because
good movie too.
I love was it Michael Cann? Is that his name?
James Caan, rest in
Jesus.
peace, just died
Thank
this
you.
year.
I know.
No,
I
it's all good.
remember that. But
And Kathy Bates plays
oh,
the
we
woman in
love
that. Yeah.
Kathy Bates.
Fuck,
What
she's the
queen.
best, dude. She's a queen. Yeah.
Have you ever seen Fried Green Tomatoes?
My mom loves that movie, and she always told me I should watch it. It looks
If you're
great.
a
Yeah.
mother over the age of 50, your favorite movie is Fried Green Tomatoes. That's a really great. And I just watched it with my mom because my mom was like,
Oh, that's
Fried
sweet.
Green Tomatoes. But yeah, that's a fun just in terms of her as an actress. But
Hmm.
yeah, I think it's interesting because you'd mentioned the story of the gentleman at your bar,
Hmm.
and then it made me think of Clea because that was a situation that happened when I was at a club, and it was this was such a genuine meet cute, like such an unforced
I
meet cute,
know.
and sometimes that shit doesn't feel real when you see it happen. I think that is, mark my words, probably one of the hardest things to write in film is the meet cute because everyone feels so just not organic. It just doesn't. But I need
Totally.
to toot my own stupid horn, but like I went to a gay pride party at a club and I got glitter in my eye, straight up fucking glitter in my eye. And I went to the bathroom and I could not for the fucking life of me get it out. And this angel walks up and helps me. And then I can see again. And she was just the most beautiful thing on this planet. And we danced the night away together. And that's how I met her. And I was like, what the fuck? I was blessed. I was blessed that evening. I was like, I have to find a reason to write this down into a story. And that was my part of Clea.
No, yeah, that was a really brave thing to write that, I think. Because it was, yeah, that's a really private moment too, like what you had in the bathroom.
Right.
And I love your section. Yeah, I'd love to. We could talk about it later, but I would love
definitely. We've got some writing stuff to catch up.
We absolutely do. And yeah, a beautiful, yeah. Meet cutes are hard.
Oh, gosh.
And really, like, it's kind of crazy to me that happened to you in real life. Like verbatim, it sounds like you like just,
right.
Like very, literally the blackness cleared and you see her. You know, that's insane. All right, guys. Smeeze is going to share her top 10 favorite movies of all time. It's a big moment for the podcast. Great. Go for it.
Okay, I lied. I'm going to do my top 20 because I have it all written out, and
the more the merrier.
This was so thought out, and I'm rereading because I made this PDF a while ago, but I'm reading it and I still agree with it. Okay, so I'll start at 20 and go up because that's more fun. So number 20 is Get Out. And then number 19 is Us. I really fell in love with Jordan Peele.
2 in a row. Wow.
Right. Black Swan, Darren Aronofsky, big fan of him because he's weird and I like that shit.
He is very weird.
Yeah. And he actually has A24 The Whale coming out.
The Whale, yeah.
Very excited to see
Brendan
that.
Fraser's like huge. I can't wait to see that.
We love Brendan Fraser. Everybody be nice to Brendan Fraser.
Brendan Fraser's he's daddy.
He is daddy all the way through and through. And then I have, don't make fun of me. I have The Evil Dead, but I'm talking about the remake.
I'm not making fun of you. No judgments here.
That's one of my favorite ones, just because it's nostalgic as well, because my best friend and I saw it together, and her dad bought us the tickets because we weren't old enough to see it. And
it must have freaked you the fuck out if you were like 12.
We were screaming. We had such a good time. And like we were little cheap asses because we were young. So we like brought like macaroni and cheese in like a Tupperware container. We were kind of ridiculous, but that's like such a wholesome memory of seeing like one of my first rated R films.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, yeah. And then I'm a huge Jim Jarmusch fan. So, of course, number 16 is Coffee and Cigarettes.
Oh, we talked about that. Yeah. I love him. Jarmusch is the best.
He's pretty killer, and he's also number 4 on my list. I will get to it. You know, what's crazy is that I'm looking through this. Most of my favorite movies are actually horror. And when I was a kid, I hated horror. But my best friend was really into it, so I got more into it with her. Number 15 is 8th Grade, Bo Burnham, which is, have you ever seen 8th Grade?
Of course.
Oh,
I love 8th Grade.
I cried so hard because it was like, what else were we just talking about in terms of,
Lady Bird.
Lady Bird and Turning Red and 8th Grade. Are such phenomenal depictions of being a young girl.
Yeah.
And like going through life. So big fan of things that mirror my growing up, I guess. And then one I just mentioned to you in the break, A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night is one of my favorites. It's so stylized.
Yeah.
And it's pretty, even though the content is kind of ugly. You know, it's this Iranian woman vampire killing like rapists and awful people, like, but it's done so beautifully. It's crazy.
So beautiful.
I like
Great
that they
soundtrack too. It's a great
right.
soundtrack.
I appreciate that they committed with black and white with that as well, which is always
Totally.
like a interesting uh artistic decision. Um and then we have number 13 is Hereditary. I've never felt more uncomfortable after a movie in my life.
You just want to take such a long shower and
Oh
like
my God. It's like one of those movies that you have to watch something funny afterwards.
oh, absolutely.
Um,
One of the craziest moments I've ever had in a movie theater is spoiler alert when the young
mhm,
girl gets decapitated
right.
and the entire theater just audibly just screams what the fuck and we're like sitting like Ari Aster makes you kind of sit in that moment for like an uncomfortable amount of time. And that
Right.
defines a lot of the movie too.
Right.
It's a brilliant movie.
So I am actually allergic to nuts.
Same here. No way.
That's crazy. Tree nuts or
Yeah.
almonds?
Both. Tree nuts,
Okay.
peanuts, almonds, everything.
So I'm just allergic to tree nuts. And when I first watched this, I was in such shock that I like weirdly paused it. It's kind of like a car crash. I weirdly paused it and rewound it and watched it again because I was like
Damn.
absolutely baffled that that even happened.
That's a
But
good way to say it. Yeah.
that movie was crazy. And the
Hmm.
writing was phenomenal. It was just
Amazing. Yeah.
oh okay, number 12 is mid 90s.
More coming
I,
of age.
yeah, more coming of age. I really enjoyed it a lot. And then, just A24 is kicking ass, man. They're just doing a bunch of fun shit and like
Of course.
just I hope they just continue on their like semi what's it called? Independent path. I
Yeah.
hope
They're sticking with just passion projects, kind of like
yeah,
the $20 million and below range.
right, which
Which
is
is great.
technically
Yeah.
independent
Technically indeed.
budget.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And then Signs.
Ooh.
That's a
That's a
really
childhood favorite of mine too.
that's I just watched it for the first time during COVID and I loved it because it was one of those that, you know, it was made long ago, but it still scared me. It was still like
Very unsettling.
it did a very good job at not revealing too much at once, which I feel like, you know, that's probably one of the most frustrating things about watching a film. Like I really enjoyed Nope, but at
Love Nope.
some point, the closer it gets to the theatrical release, the trailers give just a tiny bit more away.
Oh yeah.
That
Way
shit pisses me
too
off.
much. Too
I'm
much.
like,
Too much.
I'm like, you need to Alfred Hitchcock that shit. And I'm sorry that sounds like such a fucking purist asshole thing to say, but like,
I agree with you.
don't give too much away. Although, if you feel like you need to grab people, I understand that's a marketing tool. So do what you have to do. But like, it annoys me. I try not to watch trailers too much
I don't
before
like
film.
all I need is from Jordan Peele and then cut to black and I'm good. That's
And I'm like,
all I
I'm
need.
there. I'm there.
Yeah. I was there regardless. Yeah.
Right, exactly. All right. And then number 10 is good old Psycho.
Speaking of
That
Hitchcock.
yeah, that was the first movie I watched in my first film class in the eighth grade. And it was my best friend's mom that taught the class. And we were in Catholic school. And I remember they had just finished having sex. And like, she literally created like a partition to cover the window because she was like, oh, I forgot this was a thing. All right, let's create a partition on the window and lock the door, kids. Like, you guys aren't really
Whoa.
supposed to be watching this stuff, but we're going to.
Wow.
And so this was just a nostalgic movie. But I just remember, like, even at that age, just seeing the skeleton flip around was scary. And it's just
It's so scary.
skeleton. Like, it was very
It's
silly. But it was the same thing that Signs did. It did a really good job of not giving away too much information.
mhm.
And it was creepy. It was creepy as shit.
Yeah.
And it was so fun. So
It's
fun.
so fun. A twist that actually narratively works and functions,
Right.
And yeah, the ending of that movie is like just seeing his face, the final shot of that movie is like, ugh,
Right.
fucking
Exactly.
chills.
Just
Yeah.
so fun, so weird. and just how much it like upset people when it first came out, as
Oh
much as
yeah,
like scares people till this day, is pretty awesome.
yeah, totally,
Timeless.
totally.
Um, let's see. Okay, number 9, Gone Girl.
I love that movie.
Oh my God. What an awesome psychopathic like story, and from like the perspective of a woman getting
Hmm.
revenge. Like I
Fuck yeah.
love this movie. I have the book, but I haven't read it, and I
The
might
book's
delve into that.
fantastic.
Nice.
Fantastic.
Good to hear. Talking to you, I very much appreciate that you are a movie book reader as well. Because sometimes
Try to be.
when you go to film school, everyone has their own opinion or 2 cents on everything. But like, I feel like there's people I've met that say, "Oh, I don't read the book," or "Oh, because blah blah
Very
blah." I'm like,
opinionated, yeah.
I'm like,
Set in
I
their
get it.
ways. Hmm.
I am currently reading. I'm as my push to do more fiction. I'm currently reading "Call Me by Your Name," and
I'm jealous. I'm jealous. That's a beautiful book.
it is a beautiful book. In such a perspective that I wasn't imagining to be taken during it.
I know.
But it's just so lovely. At first, I was like, "Oh my God, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get through this." And
Hmm.
then I was reading it like eating pizza. I
It's
tore
a
it up.
it's
I
a
tore it
pleasure.
up. It
It's a
was so good.
pleasure read. Yeah. It's a
uh,
if I were to like go visit Italy, I would like just sit outside and maybe
oh,
give that another read because
those
it's
lucky
so
bastards.
relaxing. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. And it actually won. I forgot what year it was a part of the Oscar.
Yeah. Best
Won
adapted.
best sound design.
Did it?
100%. And
That's awesome.
I remember watching that. I watched it because I worked at Icon movie theater in Chicago.
Oh, I didn't know you worked there.
I worked there just to get the free movie tickets and all that good stuff. I hated it
Totally.
low key. It was too corporate because I worked at an independent theater in Dallas in high school and I loved it. I worked at two in Dallas and I loved it. But
Hmm.
I remember I that was one of my movies I saw while I worked there, and I really liked it. I thought it was very pretty, and
Very pretty.
R.I.P. Army Hammer's career.
Career,
I
livelihood.
watched
Yeah.
that documentary series, which was I'm going to say something a little controversial.
Do it. Go
But
ahead.
okay, so if anybody has seen it, I think it's on Discovery Plus. It's like a 4 or 5 episode long documentary about Army Hammer and all the shit that's happened. Okay.
Really? I didn't
Yeah,
know that was a thing.
it is a thing. I watched it low key. I did not have a problem with any of it until like the last like 30 minutes. And then I was like, oh, that's fucked up. But like the rest of it, I was like, okay, this dude is just really, really into kinky BDSM sex. Like
That's what I assumed. Yeah.
he wants like, and this is controversial because I believe and support the women that are telling their story, what have you. But from
Definitely.
my perspective, I'm like, he's just really into kinky sex, but he's like not going about it a proper way because there's like a rule book to BDSM and shibari and all of these things, and he's kind of going into it like I like the idea of it, and I'm going to be a dom, but I'm not going to respect the rules of it, and you're going to do when I say it. But these women were like, not into that. Anyways, it wasn't until the last 30 minutes that he was like, yeah, I'm going to eat you. Like, eat you.
Holy
And then I
fuck,
was like,
dude.
okay. Like, now we're getting kind of weird. Like, he wanted to, like, eat this chick's heart or something, or, like, barbecue her rib.
Oh,
Yeah, it got a little crazy towards the end. But,
dude, he was
and I'm
almost in the
also,
clear.
right. And I'm also watching the Jeffrey Dahmer
Yeah, the
right now
Dahmer one. Yeah, that's a
through
good one.
Netflix, and it's pretty wild, pretty wild.
Pretty wild.
Yeah, but I think it's good. I like watched 3 episodes last night, and I was like, I like had to take a walk. I was like, hold on, why am I doing this to myself? Um,
Oh, I'm definitely watching that Army Hammer doc. I
you
just
need
want to know what
to.
the fuck
It's
he did.
it's
Yeah.
pretty interesting because it's told by it's okay, so it's interesting about him, but what's even more interesting is when his aunt, I believe it's his aunt, comes on to speak and talks about their family lineage, and that shit is crazy.
He's
Like
really from a wealthy upbringing, right? Like
he's from like an
billionaire
oil company.
status.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Where like an oil company family that just decided to invest, in this oil company, and it turned out very much in their favor. But that family was fucked up in the men.
No doubt. No
Sheesh.
doubt.
And that carried along to him, unfortunately. But
Huh.
yeah, crazy story.
Crazy
Worth
shit.
worth watching. So number 8 is A Quiet Place. I hashtag love John Krasinski. Who the hell doesn't? I'm a big Office
I love,
fan.
yeah. Hashtag Jim Halpert. Come on.
Yes, hashtag always Jim Halpert. And then it just was it was one of the most original horror films I've seen in
Hmm.
forever.
Did you like the second one?
I did, I like the second one. I think everyone talked a bunch of shit. I wish it was longer. I watched it and I
It's
was
so
like,
quick. It's
it
like in the
is
blink of
so
the eye.
quick.
Yeah. It's
And
so
then when it
fast.
ends, I'm like, no.
Yeah, like a little abrupt there.
Structurally, no.
Yeah.
It's like this is not fair.
It feels like aggressively like a middle chapter of a story.
Right.
And I'm like, this is a
Exactly.
film, not like it felt like an episode of a TV show, like elongated. I was like, you kind of copped out there, Jim. You kind
Right.
of left us hanging. Um,
100%. Hopefully, isn't there supposed to be a third one? Probably.
I'm guessing, yeah,
I'd imagine so. Because that would
yeah,
be fucked up if there
that'd be
was.
fucked up. It's straight up.
Right. So number 7, we talked a little bit about earlier, but Spotlight. And then number 6 is it's been my favorite for a long time. It's Some Like It Hot.
Oh, my roommate Brendan, one of his favorite movies. I still haven't watched it. I
That's
feel
a
I feel so bad.
it's really fun. It's I forget the two guys, but it's one of Marilyn Monroe's
Yeah.
first like big roles. It's just so fun. It's so fun. They dress up. Uh, it's interesting. They experience or they it's called the Valentine's Day Massacre. It's where a bunch of gangs like shot up another gang, and so they basically it's very fun screenwriting prompt.
Mm.
What how if you accidentally witnessed a historical event and you were caught witnessing it, how would you go about it? And
Right.
so these two musicians are a part of history and see this Valentine's Day massacre. And so they escape, but they dress up as women to disguise themselves because they still need money and they still need a job.
Hmm.
So they dress up as women and they meet Marilyn Monroe and they're both kind of into her. It's really funny.
Totally.
Highly recommend.
Have you seen anything else from Billy Wilder? He wrote and directed that movie.
Yeah. I'm IMDbing his work right
You
now.
probably heard him mentioned a lot throughout
Yes,
like certain film.
100%.
Yeah, like The Apartment was a big one, and
Yes.
Double Indemnity.
Uh,
Highly, yeah,
yes. So that one's on my list. It's a lot that I've heard of. The 7 Year Itch,
yeah, yeah,
Sunset Boulevard. Like these
yeah.
are
Hmm.
these are incredibly. So my friend or my one of my regulars at the fine dining bar I worked at we keep in touch, him and his wife, and for my birthday he got me this awesome book. It's right there. It's called The Naked Screenwriter.
Oh
And
yeah,
naked screenwriting.
yeah. That's a
And
great one. I read that in school.
yeah, and I read the interview with him and Billy Wilder, who's like,
Yes, yeah.
yeah. So
The dude was a good writer.
yeah, he was a
R.I.P.
great
A
writer, and
great writer.
he loved it, and he loved writing, and I think
Exactly.
that's
Yeah,
important.
it
uh,
is.
let's see. Okay, number 5, top 5. We've got The Birds, Alfred Hitchcock.
Oh
Um,
yes.
the first time I ever saw The Birds was when I was in middle school. I was in Palm Springs, California, vacationing with my parents, and it was the 50th anniversary of the movie, and Tippi Hedren was there, and she did a Q&A afterwards. And
Wow.
she talked about how awful Alfred Hitchcock was
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
how manipulative and terrible he was. And
Hmm.
man, that last scene where she's in I think it's like the attic or basement.
She's locked in and all the birds are, yeah.
Those were real birds.
That
And
was
he
real.
locked her in there
Yeah.
and would not let her out. And she said she's terrified. She like has such a trauma of birds
Mhm.
from that, obviously. But
Yeah. Unfortunately, Hitchcock had some not so great approaches towards directing his women a lot of the time. You could say the
yeah,
same about Stanley Kubrick and The Shining and stuff, obviously, but
yeah, a
yeah,
very actors are sheep kind of mindset, which he said
totally.
before in an interview. I think he
Oh
said
yeah, he said it straight
actors
up.
are props or whatever.
They're
So
props in my bigger scheme of my movies. And I
yeah,
don't know, man.
people are people, man.
People are people, dude.
So, and then number four is Down by Law. Um,
Jarmusch again.
yeah, Jarmusch again. Watched that in class, and it was just such a delight,
It's
such
a
a freaking
delight.
delightful
Mhm.
movie.
Tom
And
Waits.
honestly, most things by Jim Jarmusch are quite delightful. Dead
They're
Man,
all delightful.
also.
Dead Man.
If you want to see Johnny Depp at, in my opinion, his sexiest, Dead Man. He is
I
such a
co-sign.
cutie pie when he is that age.
He's adorable.
So, um,
Yeah.
all right, top three. In the Mood for Love,
Ooh, that's a great one.
number
That's a
three.
beautiful movie.
It is an eye fuck fest, and it's
I fuck
beautiful,
fest.
and it's sad, and the music is just like one of the most beautiful themes. I have it in my playlist because I love it so much, but
Hmm.
it just is like, oh, every time you hear it, it's so many emotions wrapped up in one. What an amazing movie.
The
Absolutely.
colors too, the coloration, like the
Color
set design.
it's very red
Uh,
based.
I
Um,
I've had parties in the past where I would just throw that movie on in the background just as eye candy.
right,
And people would
exactly.
always get like kind of transfixed by it. They're like, "What is this movie?" I'm like, you just got to watch it, man. It
Gotta
is
watch it.
so yeah.
Right.
That's me tricking people to watch In the Mood for Love.
Right,
Like
exactly.
it's so good. Yeah.
Sometimes people don't want to commit to subtitles, and I totally understand that.
Unfortunately, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Depends on how tired you are.
It's yeah.
And then number two is Blood In, Blood Out, which I mentioned earlier. And then number
I will watch it.
one, yeah, please watch. And then number one is Moonrise Kingdom.
Hmm.
Uh, Wes Anderson, who grew up in the same neighborhood that I did in Dallas and
Really?
went to like prep private school. Because if you've ever watched Rushmore,
Rushmore. Yeah.
that's where that stems from.
No way.
Because when they did Bottle Rocket, they're like him and Owen Wilson.
Yeah. They were in film school, right? At the time.
Yes.
I think they made a short film
First,
that
yeah.
got the funding for the feature, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
And yeah, Owen I actually ran into Owen Wilson with my dad one time when we were
Oh,
having
really?
Dallas. Yeah.
Nice.
Oh my God, he is so handsome in
He's a
person.
sweetheart. Sweetheart,
He
yeah.
is truly, but yeah, Moonrise Kingdom has always been one of my favorites. I saw it at the first movie theater I worked at, which was in Dallas, called the Angelica Theater. It's an indie theater, super super cute. But I love movies, and that one's my favorite because every time I watch it, there's so much detail packed into it that I just
Yeah.
experience it differently every single time I watch it. And I love that. I think that's such a
Totally.
rare thing. And I know I used it when I taught my kids a couple years ago, but I'm just so smitten with that movie, and I love my specific observation from that movie is I love I love how adult the children act, and I love
Yes.
how childish the
The
adults.
adults. Yeah.
It's such a fun dynamic, and the actors are so cute, and I love that they're not conventional in the way that they look. And oh my God, it is just so charming. It is such a charming story, and I love the way it makes me feel. I
Totally.
love the way it makes me feel. The color
Totally.
theory is out of this world. And I just remembered why we were talking about Moonrise Kingdom in my class, and it was because we discussed the importance of style. And so I would show my kids, whether they'd seen the movie or not, I'd show them a screen grab from a movie, and I'd say, okay, who did this movie? And they said, oh, that's Quentin Tarantino. It's like, okay, cool. All right, now
That's so fun.
who did
Yeah.
this movie? And they said, oh, that's Wes Anderson. And I said, all right, now tell me why you know this. And they're like, why do you know this without, needing to be told?
Hmm.
Well, because of this, because of that. And it's like, yes, because of the style. It's all about style. And I think that that's, in my opinion, to close this out, how you almost know that you've made it is through your style and having it be recognizable without your name or without a title, but just based on that.
Yeah. And Wes Anderson has like the most distinct modern Hollywood style that there is. So yeah,
Right.
that's really cool that you're teaching the kids to like recognize like authorship in
Right.
directors like Tarantino or Wes Anderson, all these guys and girls in modern day Hollywood. And yeah, I love that you shared your top 20 and you went beyond and beyond the top 10. I loved hearing that. Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. I just had a blast talking writing with you and movies and life in general. Is
Yeah.
there anything you want to like plug? Like any shorts that will be out in the world or anything?
Oh gosh. Holy Word is going to be in Santa Fe. I can actually send you the link, and if you
Yeah,
want to put it in the description if anybody wants to watch it.
totally.
It's
Totally
a
will.
delightful little story, and I'm very proud of it. It's my baby, and it just was such a blast writing, and it was a blast creating, and it's been a blast doing the festival realm with it. So I don't have any writing plans for the moment. I'd like to work on a show Bible for La Cocina, but other than that, it's more so just working on that pilot and getting it ready and sending it out and seeing if anybody's interested, because I'm really trying to live that Shonda Rhimes life, man. I'm trying to get that one show that I do for the rest of my life, and then I'm set, and then I'm just vibing and vacationing till I die. That's my life goal.
that's that's a great life goal. That's what life's about in my for us at least. I feel
Right,
like
exactly. But yeah, no, this has been a pleasure. And we haven't talked like in depth since Clea, and then before then since school. So yeah, it's a pleasure. It's an absolute pleasure. I know we always had good conversations in class as well.
totally,
You
totally.
know.